Hello and welcome back to another episode of Blue Jays Buzz. We have not made a podcast episode in a while, so there's a lot to discuss today, including some big Blue Jays signings so far this offseason and looking forward to opening day. The first big point of business today, especially with some of these signings like Jeff Hoffman and Max Scherzer, is the potential order of the Blue Jays starting rotation on March 27th, 2025. So, obviously, the first game is March 27th at 3:07 p.m. Some big signings so far. Obviously, we got Hall of Famer Max Scherzer.
Yep, we got Anthony Santander.
Yeah. We got Jeff Hoffman. Scherzer's actually a bit of a relic now, but I'm sure he's still going to be able to produce.
Oh, yeah.
So, first of all, Finn, with this new signing of Scherzer, how do you think that's going to impact the Blue Jays starting rotation? And what do you think Yariel Rodriguez's role is now on the Blue Jays?
Okay, so I think in a perfect world, if Max Scherzer manages to stay healthy, he'll be our, if he performs to what he can, he'll be our starting pitcher number one.
Really? You think so?
I think so. If he can overcome injuries and pitch how a Hall of Famer should pitch.
See, that's interesting.
But
I'm not sure.
Being realistic, I think he'll be our four or five even.
Really?
Because I'm assuming he's gonna get injured because he is 40.
See, I think it really depends on the success of the other Blue Jays starting pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think you know what you're getting from Jose Barrios. It's gonna be a mid-3s ERA, and he's gonna throw 32 games in the season. Kevin Gausman, I still think you do kind of know what you're getting with Kevin Gausman, even though he's a little bit more inconsistent and a bit shaky last year. But then, of course, with Chris Bassett, I think you really have no idea. He's a bit of a wild card.
And Bowden Francis, near the end of the year,
Bowden
he was
Francis
going crazy.
was quite good. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
So the Blue Jays, I think it's fair to say, have infinitely better starting rotation depth than they did last year, 2 years ago, or even 3 years ago.
Absolutely. And if they wanted to, they could use Yariel Rodriguez as starting pitcher. And I've heard some news on the radio that it's possible that if their starting rotation is looking good without him, they could use him as a reliever.
They could. In fact, if Scherzer is getting injured or they want to build him in slowly, they could have Scherzer start the game because, honestly, you're not using Scherzer as a relief pitcher unless it's Game 7 and he's closing.
And then
you could use Rodriguez to piggyback off him. So maybe Scherzer does 4 innings, Rodriguez does 3. Kind of like what we saw with Trevor Richards and Bowden Francis.
Yeah.
For the better part of the last 2 years. Personally, I think if Gausman has a good year, I think he's uncontested number 1.
Yeah.
And I think Barrios
could be a number 2.
Could be a solid number 2. I think Scherzer slots in at number 3.
Okay,
to be honest.
Yep.
Because I think he's older. You don't want to overwork him too much.
Yeah.
But obviously, like any baseball decision, they're gonna look at the analytics. They're gonna look at the underlying statistics.
Exactly.
And then obviously, there is the possibility. We have so many options for starting pitchers that I think there's the possibility of a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
That is what the Dodgers are gonna be doing. I think with Roki Sasaki to help him work back into the MLB, especially when Shohei is healthy to pitch. One thing I will say, though, I was listening to the Blair and Barker podcast yesterday, and they were interviewing Kevin Gausman, and he was asked about the possibility of a 6-man rotation, and he was quite firmly against it.
Really?
He was.
You think because he would want more starts?
Well, yeah, but he also, Kevin Gausman, he likes his routines, right?
Yeah.
He bikes to the Rogers Center on game days.
Whoa.
I did not know until I went to a game last year and they had the mid-inning things, 2 truths and a lie. But he does, at least last year he did. He likes his routines. He likes his consistency.
Yeah.
And he does not seem like the kind of person who would want to change it up.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of like
having too many days off when
exactly,
you're used to let's say 4 games or something.
Now, I don't think he'd mind a day off, but I think he wants his pitching games. He wants consistency. He wants to know when he's going to pitch.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be like, oh, am I going to pitch or am I not going to?
He doesn't want to come in a week before not knowing if he's pitching on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
You know? He's the kind of person who seems to really like consistency. However, if you are going to do a 6-man rotation, I think Bowden Francis definitely gets a shot, at least at the start of the year in that 6-man rotation.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget about Alek Manoah. He probably won't be ready at the beginning of the season.
It all
but
depends.
Throughout the season, I think he will be. So, as we all know, I think most people know this, that Alek Manoah was getting Tommy John surgery, and that's why he was injured. I'm just looking at an old archive from TSN from June 18th, 2024. Obviously, he's out for Tommy John surgery. This says he was out 12 to 14 months. I'm pretty sure that timeline was shortened to 12.
Yeah.
In the months after that. But, so that means the earliest he's coming back is probably Canada Day, maybe a little bit before.
Yeah. Like earlier, mid-July, maybe.
Yeah, and I don't think you can rely on him. Like, you certainly don't know what you're getting.
Exactly.
Like, he's also coming back from Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
If you look at other pitchers that come back from Tommy John surgery, typically they're not throwing 7 innings in their first start back.
No, you have to build them up.
Letting up 2 runs, right?
You gotta build them up.
You have to build them up slowly because you don't want them to get injured again. Now, there's so many, like Shohei Ohtani, for example, he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries. That's exactly the kind of thing you do not want to have happen to your pitchers.
Especially when they can't hit.
Yeah, the Blue Jays need Alek Manoah, right? I think. Although I think their reliance, which is great about these signings, is that they don't need him as much anymore as they did.
Because they have Scherzer, Yariel Rodriguez, all these
Bowden
guys
Francis,
now.
Chris Bassett. So many different options. Kevin Gausman, Barrios, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you could pick right now, let's say 5-man rotation with an extra 6th, okay? If you could pick your order, what would it be?
Number 1, Kevin Gausman. We're going to go with a number 2, Jose Barrios. Number 3, I think, based off of the end of last year, this is going to be a sleeper pick on my part.
Okay.
I think we go with Bowden Francis.
Okay.
Number 4, I'd like to put what's his name? Max Scherzer.
Okay.
Based off of like just his like legacy in general and the fact that he's a great pitcher. But if he gets injured, obviously that'll play a factor. And then at the 5, I think Chris Bassett. And then in the bullpen, Yariel Rodriguez can get some time. And when Alek Manoah feels comfortable and ready, I think we can slot him in there.
Okay. Cool. So personally for me, I think it's Gausman 1, Barrios 2, Scherzer 3.
Okay.
I think those are pretty solid top 3.
I agree.
And then Bassett, and then Francis or Rodriguez.
Okay.
But right now I'd lean towards Francis.
Okay.
Because I think Yariel Rodriguez can be a big asset in the bullpen.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
What about a potential Vladdy extension? Changing gears here. What about a potential extension for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? We know that some numbers have been floated. Vladdy hasn't necessarily agreed. I think the problem here is that he's working off the Soto number.
I
He's
agree.
saying, I'm better than half as good as Soto.
Exactly.
Obviously, I'm not as good as Soto.
Yeah.
But if he's getting $765 million...
I should be getting $450 or $500.
Something like that.
Exactly.
Before the Soto signing, that would have been
$330.
insane. It would have been like $300 over 12.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it might be $450 over 10.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking at.
Which is not ideal for management aspect.
What are your thoughts about a potential value expansion and how it would impact the front office as a whole?
Well, I think if we were not going to extend Vladdy because of the price, I think we would need to jump on someone like Pete Alonso or Alex Bregman immediately.
Okay.
Like, we would have to fill that gap quickly, because otherwise we will run out of time.
Okay.
Hopefully, I think they will. I think they will extend Vladdy, and I hope they come to their senses and just throw money at him, basically.
Okay.
I think they should give him around, let's say, 560 over 14.
560. Wow. Okay.
560 over 14, with an option with a 2-way option after the 5th year.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Like an opt-out, kind of?
Yeah, an opt-out, yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. I think if the Jays wanted to sign Vladdy, they should have done it 2 years ago. Because I think the price now is
it's too high.
Very high. No, I don't think it's too high. I don't think you can really put a price. Like if you sign him as an extension instead of in the open market, you're getting a discount no matter what, I think.
Yeah.
Right now I think what about like 430 over 12? Like I feel like that's a reasonable number for Vlad. It's about 35 million a year. Although he might say that's modest, right? He might say, "Yeah, I think I deserve a bit more."
Than that.
But I think you stack it. Like if it's a front stack contract, so maybe he gets 40 million a year the first 5 years,
and then they get smaller
and then 30 million a year the next.
Okay.
Or something like that. I think that's a reasonable. I think it's a reasonable proposal. Vladdy might not like that. But obviously they can't really control Vladdy. You have any other thoughts on a potential Vladdy extension?
No, but I do want to say this. I think it's crucial for the Jays to re-sign Vladdy because if we don't, it leaves a hole in our roster, which we would need to fill with a big name, and whoever we sign will have to fill some pretty big shoes.
Okay, interesting. What about the Santander signing?
I think that was good. We need a power guy. He's hit 25 homers pretty consistently, I think.
Okay.
25, 30 a year. I don't know. I think overall, I think it was just a great idea, a great choice. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, pretty simple, straight to the point answer.
Yeah.
I think Santander's a great center. I still think they need another bat.
I agree.
No matter what.
So, here's my thought. So, obviously, some people are saying that we should get Pete Alonso, which I doubt is going to happen. And I think it would be a bad business decision in general because we'd have to pay him quite a bit of money. And people are saying that Alex Bregman, which would move, I don't know what I'm saying there. But if we were
Alex
to sign...
Bregman is an option, or JD Martinez.
Yeah, JD Martinez, I think, is the best
He's one of the only unsigned DHs. Him and Vogelback. Danny Burgers. One of the big
Danny Burgers.
He's a pretty big guy that you could sign.
But the reason why I think JD Martinez should be the one is because he's been on the Dodgers. He's had that experience winning.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's that power guy. Yes, he's older, but that might drop his price value a little bit. So we wouldn't be overpaying for anything. And we could always do basically what we did with Scherzer, sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal.
Yeah.
For a decent amount of money.
Okay.
And just see where it goes from that. I think he's a good power bat, and I think that would be the best choice in my opinion.
Okay. On to our probably final 2 subjects, or 1.5 of the day. What do you think is your opening day lineup? I'm talking batting order, positioning, starting pitcher. What do you think? Obviously, it's a home game for the Blue Jays. It's a home opener this year.
Against the Orioles.
Because there are no more renovations. Against the Orioles, obviously. Do you have an idea on hand, or should I tell you mine first?
Let's hear yours.
Okay. So I think I didn't realize that, while we might have made some big signings, the depth isn't as great
not
as I
as
thought.
great as you thought.
Once you get past the top 6, it's a bit questionable.
Yeah.
But I think you have Bo Bichette leading off, Andres Jimenez second base, depending on how he does throughout the year.
Yeah.
Vladdy at third at first, Santander hitting cleanup at DH, Springer 5th, Varsho 6th, but you could swap those 2 guys around, Kirk 7, Clement 8, and Lucas 9.
All right.
And then I think starting pitcher is Gosman.
All right. Here's a funny little question here. What happened to Davis Schneider?
Well,
what's your thoughts on Davis Schneider this season?
I think he'll still be a fan favorite.
Absolutely.
Especially if he keeps the mustache.
Mustache man.
He has a chance to succeed. He has a chance to show himself, but I'm hesitant to put him in the lineup, immediately, because I don't think he showed, okay, here's my thoughts. Let's see how he does in spring training.
Absolutely.
And evaluate from there.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, you're going to spring training. Maybe you can report back on that to us.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, I think that's how you need to approach David Schneider and Nathan Lucas as well. If you could sign Bregman, that would fill a very vacant hole at third base that I currently have Ernie Clement at.
Yep.
And it would just make the lineup stronger overall.
I agree.
Well, the pitching depth is there. The position player depth, there's a few big name guys like Vladdy, Bo, Jimenez, Santander, Springer, Varsho.
And hopefully
And
one
then after
more.
that, there's a lot of unknowns. There's some minor league guys that are currently on the active roster, you know?
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think?
So, here's my question. Would I be allowed to make my lineup as if we were going to sign someone else? Or does it have to be right now?
For fun, yeah, let's do that.
Okay. All right.
But you have to make multiple. So, like, you can give me your lineup, and then I'll say if we don't sign X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Then what is it?
All right. So, hitting at the one spot in my ideal lineup would be Anthony Santander. I'm picking Anthony Santander. He's going to play at DH because his fielding skills are less than perfect. Kind of taking a Philadelphia Phillies approach where they have Kyle Schwarber leading off and he just hits tanks or singles. Up next at shortstop, we have Bo Bichette because big RBI guy. And in the 3 spot, we got Vladdy at first base because hopefully he can perform like he has before. In the 4 spot, right now I think this is where our biggest gap is. I think I'm going to go with Dalton Varsho because of that stretch he had last season. He's going to be playing center field and because he's a great fielder, obviously. And then in the 5 spot, new pickup, Andres Jimenez, playing second base, Gold Glover, maybe even a Platinum Glover, but I'm not 100% sure. In the 6th spot, we have George Springer. Hopefully, he's not going to be as bad as he was last year. I think towards the end of our lineup, it gets kind of just worse and worse. But George Springer is going to be playing right field and batting the 6th spot. In the 7th spot, hear me out. We got Joey Loperfido. Or Loperfido. But he's playing left field. That's because George Springer likes to play right field. And we know that already. And Joey's a young guy. Give him some chance to develop. And I think he'll be good. He played a lot near the end of the season. And I think giving him more time in the outfield would be good. Obviously, catcher, we've lost Danny Jansen to the Rays after he went to the Red Sox at the end of last season. So Alejandro Kirk will have to play catcher for most of the season. All right, and then in the 9th spot, at third base, we are putting Ernie Clement. I know some people might put Addison Barger, but I think that Ernie Clement is better overall, more of a team player, and yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do another lineup here. If we had JD Martinez, this would be my lineup. Anthony Santander at the 1 in left field. Bo Bichette at the 2 at shortstop. JD Martinez at the 3 at DH. Vladdy at first. Jimenez at second. Varsho center field. Ernie Clement third base. Alejandro Kirk catcher. And then George Springer rounding it out at the 9th spot in right field. Nothing much really changed except for the fact that George Springer and Ernie Clement basically just switched spots. I did that because George Springer, I realized that if we have enough power guys, we don't need someone who has the potential to hit that well. Like, we don't have to rely on him as much, and we could just use his speed in there in the 9th spot to set up our big boys. If we got Alex Bregman, which I don't think will happen, I think JD Martinez is our best chance. I don't even know if we've even talked about that. I'm kind of the only person who I've heard talk about JD Martinez being a possibility, but I think he is the one. If we had Alex Bregman, number 1 would be Anthony Santander, DH, Bo Bichette, shortstop, Bregman at third, Vladdy at first, Jimenez at second, Varsho center field, Ernie Clement left field, Alejandro Kirk center, George Springer at right field. So nothing much changed there. Actually, nothing changed except for the player we're bringing in. And Anthony Santander is going back to DH. Alex Bregman's playing third. And Ernie Clement will be put in left because team player, obviously, guy will play anywhere. Love him, great personality. If we had Pete Alonso, now hopefully he doesn't re-sign with the Mets. I have heard some rumblings that there's an unconfirmed thing. It's like $54 million over 2 years with an opt-out after next year. But that's not confirmed yet. So I'm holding out hope, and this is what would happen. Anthony Santander at the 1 at DH. Bo Bichette at the 2, shortstop. Blatty at the 3, third base. Yeah, I know, third base. Pete Alonso at the 4, cleanup, first base. Jimenez, second base. Dalton Varsho, center field. Ernie Clement, left field at the 7. At the 8, Alejandro Kirk, catcher, obviously. And at the 9, George Springer to set up the big boys for some nice runs. Yeah, so that's pretty much all we're going to talk about today, guys. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. And Blue Jays Buzz, we're out!